Cara and welcome to my channel. Today I just wanted to show you this technique that I use to make my own washi tape. So I like to make my own washi tape purely because I like to have colours and designs that match my pages. Obviously there's a whole load of washi tape out there with different colours and patterns on, but here in Morocco I haven't actually found that many. They're all kind of, shiny and glittery, and that's really not my bag. So what I do is I make a couple of abstract pages. Today I'm doing it on some loose leaf paper. Sometimes I do it in my journal. I'm not fussy where it is. It just depends on what I want it for. So if I'm doing a journal page, obviously it becomes a background, or not. It just stays in my journal. If I'm doing it on loose leaves, I can stick it in my journal, or I can turn it into tip-ins, card fronts, whatever you use ephemera for. I could build it up to make little, add different elements to it and pop them in my journals. But, you can basically use it for anything you like. So what I do, whether it's in my journal or on loose leaf, I always go around the edge of the page with some masking tape. So as you can see, both these pages have got masking tape around the edge. And then I just section off some of my page. So I don't think about it really, unless I'm doing something specific. I don't think about what each section is. I just put some masking tape across the page, horizontally and vertically, to create myself some sections. So they're not equal sections. I just basically go with the flow and how I'm feeling on that day. Then I grab out my acrylic paints. So as you can see, all I've done at the moment is put down a couple of sort of base layers using some different size brushes. So in the uniform blue colour, I just use a little square brush. And then in the deeper purple, I've used a thicker 1-inch brush, I believe. It might actually be 1.5 inch. Then I used a cardboard inner from a kitchen roll, which I cut down to make them smaller, and just used up some of that purple paint to create those bigger circles on my page. The little circles that you've just seen me create in the magenta are done using the cap of one of my old glue sticks. So you really can use anything to mark make. I often use sticks, forks, sometimes knives, credit cards, lids of water bottles, or like my glue stick, the end of paintbrushes sometimes, like the wrong end I mean. So anything that you can find, you can basically use to dip in the paint and make a mark. Here I'm going in with my neon pink, which, I mean, I love neon, and these colours I tend to use a lot, blue, purple and pink. I then quite often add a bit of neon just to make it pop. So I'm just smearing this in with my fingers wherever I want it, basically. There's not much thought to where this goes, but I am trying to sort of get rid of some of that white space. I do leave some white space on my abstracts, or I try my best to anyway, a bit like in my journal. I do love a bit of white space, but often find myself filling it up. So here I notice that there's some sort of extra bits of paint on those circles. So I just smush them into the circle to give myself like another effect. So again, don't think that just because you've put a circle down, that's the end of it. I play with it, and if there's spare paint here, I'll smush it in or try and recreate something else with it. I do dry between my layers, mainly because I don't want everything to make mud. I like my colours to stay true. Here I've grabbed a piece of acetate. It's not actual acetate, it's a piece of plastic from some packaging, like what your stamps come in, or, everything comes wrapped in plastic these days. And then I've grabbed out one of my favourite stamps. This is a Tracy Scott stamp, actually. It's one of her minis. It's TSM01. It's lots and lots of little dots, and I love it. And I'm just using that to get a bit more sort of interest on my pages. So I've used my big old fat Posca pen, popped that onto the plastic, and then just dipped my stamp in that to stamp onto my pages. Obviously the Posca pen is just acrylic paint in a pen, so it works as if you're using acrylic paint. Just remember to clean your stamps afterwards, because if you use paint on your stamps, it can get them a bit cloggy. So make sure you clean that off really well. Then what I did was I spritzed that Posca paint pen just to give it a bit more of a watery effect before I went in with this stamp. So this stamp now looks a little bit like it's been done with watercolour. So it's a little softer, and I really like the effect. I use that quite a lot, especially if I use the Posca pen with my stamping. It's warm here in Morocco, even though we are late on in the year. We're nearly at the end of November when I'm doing this video, and the paint and the Posca pen, it dries really quickly. So the second sort of layer of the Posca I use with a bit of water just to wet that a bit more, and then, as I said, I get that nice kind of watery stamped look. You can't really see that it's that watery in the video at the moment, but at the end, when you see the close-ups, you'll see it's watery. Now I'm going in with my Stabilo All Pencil. I do this a lot on my abstract pages, and actually quite often I do it as my first layer. I just do some scribbly lines, swirls up and down, as you can see, and then I spritz it with my water, which activates it and gives it that really nice runny look. I do like that on my abstracts. I dab most of the water off with my kitchen roll there before drying it. That does help the drying time, and also it makes the look a little bit softer as well. So I do like that. When I'm doing these abstract pages, I just like to experiment with what I can do with my materials. So I probably use the same sort of techniques a lot, but I will do them in different ways. Like I said, sometimes I use the Stabilo All at the beginning. Therefore, every time I'm adding paint or something, that reactivates that Stabilo. So you kind of get different effects. Here I'm just using a Lumo Colour paint marker pen. Again, it's just acrylic paint, just like a Posca pen, but it's just made by Staedtler. And I'm using that, I'm activating it on the plastic, and then I'm just using that to do some splatter. So I used the blue and then the white. I did get a question the other day about why I'm bashing it with a pair of scissors. I recently had an operation on my arms, so I can't flick it like I usually would. So I've got about another month or two before I'm sort of, as they call, fully recovered, so that I can then start flicking my pens again. But the scissors work really well. And in fact, I think I get a more controlled flick with the scissors than I did when I was using my arm or my hand to flick it. Now I've just put some white paint out on my palette, and I've grabbed an old credit card or store card, whatever cards you have. And I'm just doing some sort of haphazard line work as another way to mark make. As I said, I will use anything and everything I can get my hands on. When we moved to Morocco, I didn't bring too many supplies with me, so utilising stuff you can find around your house is a perfect way to get extra and different marks on your pages. So this card is a great thing to use, because you can use it to smear paint, do your lines, you know, graffito with the corners of it. So many different ways to use, and also there are so many different things in your house that you didn't realise you could use for mark making. Perhaps that's another video to come. So again, drying off the layers and just making sure they're fully dry. So now what I do is I heat the masking tape. Now, masking tape, as with most or all tapes, have got obviously a glue on the underside. If you heat them, the glue reactivates and therefore becomes a lot easier to pull off of your paper, and you are less likely to rip your paper. Now, I say less likely because you can still rip your paper, and I believe I do in this video. But I just pull each, there it is, that's the rip, I believe. I think I start from the other end now because of the rip in the paper. You can't see it from here, and obviously when I cut that piece down you won't be able to see it, but some people are bothered by that, especially if it was in your journal. But you can see that bit of ripped paper at the bottom of my page there. So when I'm laying my masking tape down, I'm putting it on another piece of plastic. So again, this plastic we get, if we do a little bit of dry cleaning here, we tend to get it all wrapped in these plastic pouch things, and I keep them for this reason. Now, the tapes from the middle of the page, I've laid sort of in the middle of my table there. They are lovely, all covered in paint, got lots of pattern, lots of paint on them, and they are great for washi already. These ones I'm laying to the edge of my page are from the edges of the paper. The reason I lay them onto the edge is because I will add more paint to those. As you can see, like the middle ones, as I said, they're covered in paint, covered in texture. They've got pattern all over them, like these ones I'm laying down now. But the ones on the edge, there's quite a lot of white tape still left there. Now, I may use those as they are, but I just put them to one side of my plastic so that I've got the option there to add a little bit more paint or a little bit more of mark making before I use those as washi tapes. So that's the difference between why they're in the middle and why they are on the edge. So again, I'm just heating up every bit of tape as I go and along the tape as I peel it to try and get a very nice sort of peel back. I always, or most often, peel my tape like at an angle as well. That does help with the peeling of the tape. Don't sort of pull it straight up, pull it at an angle. You'll see what I mean, I think. It's like pull your tape to sort of 90 degrees rather than the 180 or the, you know, straight pull like that. So I've pulled it to the side. So again, I'm not fussy. See, these didn't fit on my plastic, so I've just ripped them. They're going to be ripped up for washi tape anyway, so I don't mind ripping them in half and getting them ready for more paint to be added. So here you can see my 2 finished pages. And here is all the washi tape I've created just by doing those 2 pages and one other in my journal, which was already on there. Just put the white sheet behind so you can see it a bit better because I have got my backing paper on that table there. So now what I'm just going to do is show you how I sort of divide these up if I want them. So quite often I will just rip them. Sometimes I will cut them with scissors, but I do like the sort of little bit of a rougher edge that a ruler rip gives. And then this little piece now could be added to a journal as a tip-in. It could be put on a card front. You know, I could fold it in half to make a card or a bookmark, or, you know, I mean, it's quite big for a bookmark, but you get what I'm saying. The shapes will kind of give you ideas. So that will depend on how you put your initial washi tape, your initial masking tape down. And then I just like to line around the edges just to give that a little bit of a finishing look. I don't always do that, and you don't have to do that, but I'm just showing you can. So yeah, that's how I make my own washi tape and some abstract pages for tip-ins. So I hope you like this video. Please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.